Let the accused step forward, said the king. Do you mean me? Off with her head, roared the Queen of Hearts.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Wonderland Wednesday. This is our final video in our series reviewing the 1988 Czechoslovakian version of Alice in Wonderland. This was the third in a three-part series, and if you missed the other two, I will have them linked in the card and in the description below. This project in particular was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun too, so thank you for watching.
When she gets out of the room, there are these little evergreen trees, and she starts eating the mushroom pieces. Also, please children, do not try this at home. And instead of her shrinking and growing, the objects around her shrink and grow.
Which was not true to the book, but I actually thought it was really creative and I really liked that. I don't know, there's so many strange choices in this that I could be really picky and say you didn't follow the book at all, but I actually ended up really liking them. This was one of those things. She finds another room with a tiny little house in it,
Very
out of
tiny.
which, yes,
It
very,
looks-
very tiny.
It looks like a mantelpiece figurine, basically.
And it's sort of bouncing around, screaming like a baby. So she eats a little bit of the mushroom, making the house grow huge.
So many dishes get thrown out of this house. They really got into this part. And then
The fish footman comes in, but I think he's a pike.
a taxidermied pike with a fluffy wig. Didn't I say, of course he looks like that?
Yes.
With what looks like maybe a velvet coat. His coat was actually quite grand, but he himself was a disturbing little fangs. Disturbing character.
And he knocks on the house, and instead of having a letter for the Duchess, he has a letter for Alice. And the frog exits the house, and they have their little spiel from the book, and then their wigs fall off and begin fighting each other in a pot.
Alice puts their wigs back on, and
The pike leaves after that, and the frog begins to bounce around chasing flies and eating them with a tongue that appears to be a cow tongue.
he was eating probably more than one type of insect, but he had a black head, not like a usual green frog head that you would expect. He was already an unattractive character, but then his tongue looks like not a cooked cow tongue, but a raw cow tongue. I don't even know what they used, but I wouldn't be surprised if they used a raw cow tongue. It did not look natural. And she seems to be enjoying him, but then she gets back to the business at hand of trying to figure out what's going on in this house. She looks in, and instead of the Duchess and the cook, the rabbit is trying to bottle feed the baby, and I said I would cry too.
You never actually even see the baby. It's just a bundle of swaddling clothes that the rabbit is trying to poke a bottle into.
Eventually, he gets fed up with this situation, and instead of just throwing dishes at Alice, he throws the baby at Alice, which pretty much turns into a pig instantly.
Yeah, basically.
And the pig was cute.
The pig was probably the cutest thing in the movie. It was alive. It wasn't taxidermy. It was very feisty too.
I'd say Alice was the cutest thing in the movie. Maybe the pig is the second cutest thing in the movie.
Okay, I'll give you that. The pig wriggles out of her arms and escapes. She pulls up the house. Apparently the rabbit has disappeared from the house, I don't know. But the letter is under the house. She opens it up and it's blank for some reason.
But she was already told that it was an invitation to play croquet with the queen.
Yes, so she knows what it is. Then she hears the baby crying again. She follows it and finds the pig.
Just squealing,
Yes.
going down the stairs.
So then she finds another room, and here we have the Mad Tea Party, which is another thing that they've put a really weird twist on. The Mad Hatter is a marionette, and the March Hare is a wind-up stuffed animal. And they're both very old-looking toys.
They both look like they could be from the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
His paint is distressed. The rabbit is partially falling apart, and he has this sort of mobile carriage thing that he can wheel himself around the table with. He's sort of a honey yellow Winnie the Pooh type color with an eye that constantly wants to come loose, and he constantly has to be rewound. This scene was so strange in that they did take lines from the book, but there were lines that they repeated over and over, different actions that they kept repeating. The rabbit buttering pocket watches, and the Mad Hatter wanting to move down for a clean cup.
It at first it seems really close to the book with all the lines that they're saying, but then the Mad Hatter pulls the rabbit out of his hat, and his watch is buttered by the March hare, which he stuffs back inside of his chest. The rabbit runs out of the room, and that's when everything starts repeating. Everything just keeps happening over and over again, faster and faster and faster. And at one point, the dormouse pops out of a teapot. The dormouse is a mink stole, and it starts slithering around the table and cleaning all of the cups with its tongue. Yes, licking up all of their dirty dishes, and then it just crawls back into the teapot.
And it was actually kind of cute.
Everything eventually gets too crazy for Alice. The Mad Hatter's covered in watches. She leaves. But as she leaves the room, the Mad Hatter pulls the rabbit out of his hat again, and the rabbit leaves right away, but his watch is still buttered from the first time, because when he leaves the room he pulls it out and it's still got clumps of butter on it.
He wipes it on Alice's sock, which is a really random, rude, yet kind of amusing moment.
I can only imagine what this rabbit was thinking, because apparently the Mad Hatter has the power to pull him from anywhere, so the rabbit was probably getting close to the castle, and suddenly he's back in this room again.
Little do we realize that's why the rabbit is always late.
It makes sense. I love this fan theory.
And I'm guessing maybe that Alice was big enough that the rabbit didn't realize he was wiping butter on her, because they're supposed to be enemies at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. He walks by her like he doesn't even see her, so... Alice follows the rabbit up the stairs and finds herself in an attic full of laundry. She goes through the laundry, and it's like the laundry is multiplying. She's just going through so many, I don't know, undergarments, slips, nightgowns, all these white things.
Clotheslines across an attic, which probably mirror what some people would be doing in their houses.
And she gets to the end of it and finds the garden paintings again, except now there are playing cards dueling. And it's not the cards themselves. The characters have come out of the cards, like they've been cut out and they're now animated. But the cards are still behind them, and they still follow them like they know that they're part of these characters.
The way you said that made it sound much creepier than it actually looked.
I don't know how else to describe it, because...
These disembodied cards were following their figures around.
Well, they were. That's just what was happening. It wasn't creepy, it was just interesting, I thought. But then...
No, it wasn't creepy.
The queen comes through, and she's shouting, "Off with their heads." And we find out why the rabbit loves his scissors so much. He's the queen's executioner.
I didn't think of it like that, but yes, maybe that's why it comes. Well, the scissors are multi-purpose tools, and in this movie, they're used for beheading.
He snips the playing cards' heads off, but they're of course paper, so it's not like it's gory or anything. They're just pieces of paper that have been snipped.
And with as dark as this movie is, they're not actually dead. You would think with the darkness of this movie that they would be dead now, but they're not.
They walk out of the room and their heads follow with the playing card cutouts following behind them. It's just
need
random.
They just need a little Scotch tape.
Yeah, basically, because nothing ever dies except for the water rat.
Oh my goodness.
Alice follows these cards. She's going through these paintings, but she's sort of changing sizes at random. She's big one minute, small the next. And she eventually finds the Mad Hatter and March Hare playing cards now. And the queen comes through, orders them beheaded, and the rabbit snips off their heads. They're still alive, of course. And they basically just exchange heads because they each pick up the other's head.
They just feel around for their heads and then they get on with it.
Yes, it was like a minor inconvenience.
Where did I put that? Oh, here it is. Good.
After the beheading, the queen wonders if Alice plays croquet, and the queen and the rabbit seem completely nonplussed that their execution targets aren't dead. They just move on with their lives. And she asks if Alice plays croquet, and Alice does. So they go to another room where she is ordered to pick a card with a flamingo on it. And the flamingo is cut out like the other cards, except it's much bigger. And you would expect hedgehogs, but they are pincushions, which was another thing that I noticed from Alice's room. I saw the pincushions at the beginning.
Okay.
And they're playing with these pincushions, and the queen is ordering more cards beheaded when they're not behaving as she wanted them to.
She went first, and then I think a bunch of card figures fell down, and then the rabbit was doing a bunch of executions.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to Alice's turn, her flamingo is unruly.
Well, her flamingo turns into a live chicken for some reason.
That.
And then all of the flamingos turn into chickens. And then the pincushions turn into hedgehogs.
Which was adorable.
And then all of these animals just sort of fly off and wander off, and everyone leaves. And Alice is there alone all of a sudden, except the rabbit comes in and hands her this book and tells her that she's supposed to memorize it. And this makes way to the trial scene, where you find out that all of these cookie tart things that she's been eating are the queen's tarts, and she's now on trial for eating them. She's trying to defend herself, but she's ordered to read her notebook, which the notebook is apparently a script for the trial, and they're quite upset that she's going off script.
She has a scripted apology, which she reads, but then she's not sorry, not really sorry, and she's saying that she didn't eat anything, well, hardly anything. And off to the side are all the little taxidermied animals making lots of noise.
Yes, cheering, hollering. Okay. Alice is not getting anywhere with her argument, so she comes forward and begins to scarf down all of the tarts.
That was really quite naughty on her part. She's normally a very well-behaved child.
Of course, this infuriates the queen, who begins screaming, "Off with her head! Off with her head!" And then Alice's head begins to change into all of the heads from the different characters that she's met. And she's like, "Which one?" And she wakes up in her room. That's kind of the end. You realize that it was all a dream, but then she's looking off into where the rabbit's cage was, and it's still empty. It's still broken.
Still the broken glass. She goes over to it. She sees the nails that he bit off. She pulls open the little drawer where his clothes were and finds a pair of scissors. Now, this is not the first time that you will see a throwback, not really a throwback, a hint in an Alice story that, maybe it wasn't just a dream. In this one, that's not a good thing. But they did that.
And then Alice is not really upset by this discovery. She pulls out the scissors and she says, "He's late as usual. I think I'll cut his head off."
Mm-hmm. And that is the end, and it transitions into happy piano music.
Yes.
Gentle, happy piano music, like, la la, gonna kill the rabbit.
So my camera died just as we were about to finish. So we're going to finish this on my phone. I guess let's just say what our final thoughts were. What did you think overall of this film? Do you recommend it?
This doesn't seem logical, but It's really strange watching myself film this. This doesn't seem logical, but I actually kind of recommend this for the right audience.
I think I feel the same way. I think I said after I watched it with her, I like this more as a piece of art than a piece of entertainment, because it's really weird. It's very strange, but it's like walking through a modern art museum exhibit.
It's incredibly creative, and probably, if you're wanting to, I don't know if this is a good introduction to Czech culture, but it would be a taste of it, maybe. I that's not fair to the Czech people to say this is the way everything is over there, because we have all sorts of film projects over here representing different styles.
Mm-hmm. It's a good film if you don't think you're going to be creeped out by surrealism. If you're a fan of surrealism, this is definitely a film you'll want to watch. If you're a fan of the regular Alice in Wonderland and you want a cute Alice in Wonderland story, this one's probably not for you.
No,
but just as something different, something from a different culture, something completely outside of anything you've ever seen before, then watch this one. Because even though it's not one that I'm definitely going to go back and rewatch all the time, I like that I watched it, and I probably would watch it again if I was watching it with someone, because I liked watching it more the second time when I watched it with Sarah. Just getting her reactions from it.
Don't watch it alone at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Watch it when you can take in the details and in a well-lit room with a friend and have some popcorn. But yeah, it's so strange, slightly disturbing, but so interesting.
Yeah, that's a good way of summing it up. So I think that's all for this Wonderland Wednesday. Next week, we're going to be watching 2 different shorts, and we're going to be watching them with Shayna. They're both about 3 minutes long. One is a Three Stooges cartoon, and one is a segment from Sesame Street. Both of them are sort of only vaguely related to Alice in Wonderland, but they revolve around the plot of Alice in Wonderland. So we thought we'd do another double feature day and review 2 in one day. So that'll be next week. You can look forward to that, and we'll be back with another movie the week after that. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.